Brilliant. So, great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop on using human-centered design to ask better research questions. So, when I got into the field of research and academia, I have been in three different labs over the past 4 years in neuroscience, in alcohol behavioral work, in tobacco carcinogenesis, and in stress-related research. But a lot of the times, I felt like the questions we were asking were either already asked too many times before or the solutions that we were solving for wouldn't really happen in my lifetime. And I felt a lack of purpose with that in mind. And so when Mia gave me the opportunity to talk about anything, I had been doing a year of human-centered design with the entrepreneurship hub at my college. And I thought it was really important to share that with girls in research because it really does help you understand what you want to research and define your research question. So, a little bit about my background. I just graduated with my bachelor's in neuroscience from Pomona College. It's a small liberal arts college an hour away from LA. I'm going to do my master's in neuroscience and education at Teachers College at Columbia. And I've had a year of human-centered design training at the Hive, which I mentioned was our entrepreneurship hub. Most of my research background, though, is in neurobiological work is with animal models and rodents specifically, looking at stress, neuroplasticity, cognition, and behavior. And I've had multiple years of teaching and mentoring under my belt. I'm also an international student from Mumbai, so if any of y'all have questions about that specifically, I can definitely answer that. And currently, I'm based between Mumbai and New York. So I wanted to start off with a little bit about a personal story. I did a lot of the animal research for one of my labs over the summer, and I was the only person handling it. So the gloves that I was wearing was sufficient for chemical purposes, but they weren't exactly sufficient for animal handling. It would often get torn or I would get scratches, and I didn't really feel safe in that lab. So while it was a technically sound glove, it wasn't exactly human centered for my purpose. So before I start, I just want to ask you all a quick question. Have you ever been forced to use something, an app, a tool, or a system that clearly wasn't designed with you in mind? If you want to put it in the chat or just take a moment to think about it. So, what happens when good science ends up meeting the complex world? We, as researchers, bring a lot of hard work, rigorous methods, and design with specific solutions in mind that we believe in full faith will work. But a lot of the times, the research is futile if the solution we designed is not for or with the people that we've designed for. So, a lot of the times, it doesn't land in the ways that we hope. So I wanted to present a couple case studies to contextualize this for us. 3 billion people worldwide currently rely on solid biomass fuels for their energy consumption, and this contributes to a lot of indoor air pollution that can lead to adverse health effects like lung cancer. The UN has proposed a certain number of sustainable development goals that they want to achieve by 2030, and one of them, the seventh goal, is access to affordable and clean energy. So I wanted to bring our attention to one specific region, Ethiopia. 92% of their biomass fuels, 92% of their energy usage is from solid biomass fuels, which, as I've iterated before, is extremely harmful to their health. And it's contributed to a lot of Ethiopia's deforestation, as well as harm against the women of tribal communities, because it leads to a lot of violence amongst the communities. And so, one specific group of researchers and innovators invented the clean cook stove, which uses ethanol produced by fermentation of sugars from various sources like sugarcane and sweet sorghum, grain sources, roots, and tubers, as well as fruit sources like mango, cashew apple, bananas, and melons, as well as relying on molasses specifically in Ethiopia. But Ethiopian food, one of their most delicious things, is injera bread. And injera bread is a staple for anything from breakfast, lunch to dinner. But the problem here lies in the fact that it's cooked on a stovetop that relies on solid biomass fuel. It can't be cooked on any other stovetop. So a lot of these houses would implement the clean cook stove, but would also have this solid biomass cook stove on the side. So obviously, it was still leading to indoor air pollution. So while it was technically sound and was implemented in other Latin American countries as well, it was not really human-centered for Ethiopia. Another case study is of the pulse oximeter. You may know this device. It clips onto your finger to measure blood oxygenation levels and is used constantly in surgeries, ICUs, and many of us may even have it in our homes because of COVID. How it works is that red light or infrared light is passed through the finger, and then the light that's not absorbed is detected by a sensor on the opposing side, and then the ratio of oxygenation to deoxygenated blood is calculated. But the device consistently overestimated the oxygenation levels in darker skinned patients due to the melanin content. And this was not a new fact. Research in 1990, 2005, and 2007 all established this, but it was largely ignored for decades by the manufacturers and regulators, which had extremely dire consequences, especially during COVID, where Black COVID patients were 3 times more likely to have dangerously wrong readings. So here we can see that your research sample really is your design. Who you include in your research is ends up being who you end up serving. And now, of course, technology has advanced and there are specialized pulse oximeters that take this into account for more equitable healthcare. So we can really see how important this is. So I want to bring your focus back to what human-centered design is. It's still going to sound vague by the end of me giving this spiel, but I hope that through the worksheet that Mia sent you guys, and through that, you'll understand what the process is. It's essentially a problem-solving, need-finding, and design strategy that centers people. We start with people and by interviewing them and empathizing them rather than assuming what solutions they'll need. We test prototypes really early and often, expecting them to fail, and we embrace iteration in the design process. And I mean, we really embrace iteration. It's going to keep happening again and again, but you just laugh in the face of failure and take it as a learning curve. And you end up designing something really beautiful by the end of it. So when we start empathizing, we start from ground zero. You start by observing the world. And you want to observe to uncover your users' needs, discover any design opportunities that you might have missed, challenge any assumptions that you might be holding, as well as reframe the problem to try and understand their need, get inspiration from the real world, and obtain a fresher perspective. So before we get into anything, you want to go in with what positionality you hold. So you can't challenge your assumptions until you know what your assumptions are. This is a positionality map for somebody that I found online. She's basically drawn out what her values are, what her socioeconomic status is, how she's moved around the world, what things really interest her, and where her expertise lies. It's very important to do this so that you understand what kind of questions you can ask and where you are an expert as well as where you are a beginner. And the best thing I like to say is make sure you keep a beginner's mindset. So as kids, and this is probably why we all wanted to get into academia in the first place, we were really curious people, optimistic people, amazing listeners. We could find patterns in the real world. We weren't really judgy, but we were really questioning everything. And as annoying as it might have been for our parents, we definitely really were curious people. So it's hard to go out into the real world and observe without a set framework. I really like this framework for that reason. AEIOU really helps you compartmentalize your focus in the real world. You notice what activities people are engaging in, what environments are they sitting in, what interactions are people having, and what objects are in those environments, and who are the different types of users there. And as a neuroscientist, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the various sensory systems. You want to be writing down what you're seeing, smelling, touching, tasting if you're at a restaurant, or even hearing what conversations are happening. So I wanted to give an example from my intro HCD class. We were told to go in a familiar place and an unfamiliar place and observe for at least 30 minutes. This was my familiar space. It was a cafe in our village, and I was a frequent flyer here because the coffee was amazing, but the line would always be out the door. So here we can see some of the activities that I'd observed. People were waiting, there were servers, there were people that were sitting, working, writing, listening to music, reading. What was the space like? It was different inside versus outside, definitely louder on the inside, more music, faster paced. What interactions was I seeing? What sort of conversations were I hearing? What objects were around? And who were the different kinds of users? Then I went to an unfamiliar environment, and this was a cafe of a different college. I'd never been here before, so I was definitely having more divergent thinking sitting here. I drew out a layout. You can see that I've categorized the different types of people. There were snack shoppers, heat avoiders, chefs, as well as people playing pool, those that were studying. And then I definitely experienced a lot of different stimulation to the senses, so I wrote that down as well. And I was really intrigued by the different spaces, so I drew all of those out separately. I think that this is a great way of showing how differently we observe familiar to unfamiliar spaces. So, the familiar space of that cafe that I was a frequent flyer of, I had very structured thinking. I'd kind of already assumed what the space was looking like, and I just stuck to the AEIOU framework. Whereas the new space of the hub, I uncovered new ways of discovering the environment because I'd never been there before. And it just emphasizes how important a beginner's mindset is. The second stage to empathizing is conducting interviews with users that are relevant to your problem. And this structure really helps me conduct a user interview. Typically, you introduce yourself, your objective in your project. You're trying to build rapport with the people that you're interviewing, so you give them some idea of what your project is, as well as ask if you can record, because it's really important that you're present for the interview and you're taking clear notes on questions that you want to ask, but not notes on what the other person is saying specifically. That you can do afterwards because you want to be able to allow the interview to go where it needs to go. This was an interview guide that I made that I also recommend you make if you're conducting any user interviews. Here, we were supposed to interview someone about a meaningful change in their life, and this was for a professor. So, as you can imagine, I was pretty nervous walking into that. I wanted to be prepared, but not over prepared so as to sound rehearsed. I really want to highlight some of the notes that I made for myself. It's really important to pause when you're having these conversations, maintain eye contact, and have organic conversation. Really allow the conversation to flow where it goes. And again, don't project your assumptions. These seem like sort of obvious notes to be making, but we tend to forget them as researchers, especially when we're used to the sort of structured observational methods that we learn in psychology. We might lose touch of what an actual conversation is supposed to flow like. So again, just to reiterate a few points, the person that you're interviewing is the expert. Make sure that you've built your interview guide, you're asking simple questions and really going for those specifics. If somebody starts to say, I think, then the conversation is definitely not over. Make sure that you're pausing and allowing them to complete that second thought, because most of the times when people pause and start a second thought, that can be where the real insight and nugget lies. Don't ask any binary questions or leading questions, because again, that adds more bias to your questions. Give them time to answer and really embrace awkward silence. So after all of that is done, what we like to do in HCD is build an empathy map. We love post-its in human-centered design because it allows you to move around and build your thoughts in real time. And so what we do with an empathy map is take quotes, put them in the say box, take other quotes and ideas to put in the thinking box of what different people are saying, what people are thinking, write down what people may be feeling and what people are doing. And this allows you to sort of see the patterns between all of the different users that you interview. Another important thing that we won't be doing with the worksheet, but I wanted to mention as well, is immersing yourself in your user's environment. So, experiencing what they're experiencing and putting yourself in their shoes is important. As we can see here, this researcher is trying to see what it's like for an old person to do grocery shopping. They've padded their elbows and they're wearing this helmet and a neck brace to constrict their movement. And clearly, they weren't having a very user-friendly experience with the shopping cart there. So I hope that everybody has the worksheet with them. And if they don't have the worksheet with them, could you give me like a thumbs up? Oh, the left-handed people. That's a great example because I'll definitely be bringing that up. Um, I'm gonna drop the worksheet in the chat real quick if I can. Sorry. All right. Okay, perfect. I've dropped the worksheet in the chat. If you don't have it already, it would be great to have this on hand because we'll be working through it for the rest of this time. Um, we're going to be working through a case study of Violet and her experience on Christmas Day. I'm going to play this video once, and I really want you to listen to it. And then the second time, when I play it, do fill out the empathy map in the part one section of the worksheet. Here we go.
I get up and I put my dressing gown on, I sit and have toast and marmalade, and then while I'm doing that, I put the radio on. Breaks the silence. I've never been on my own at Christmas. I used to be with all the family years ago. They've all died off one after the other. Then I've got a friend with these two ladies, they've died. So, I mean, there's so many people have died. Got cousins, but they don't keep in touch. But one, phone sometimes, but I don't, you know. I haven't. Let's put it this way: there isn't anybody that I could call my next of kin. I was attached to a lot of people, but as I say, when my mind goes back, that's all gone completely. Well, unless somebody invites me, I no, I haven't booked anything for Christmas Eve. No, the shops will still be open, and go out and get whatever I want, cook. I should watch the television. Yeah, got nothing planned yet at the moment, so I watch the television. I've got a cousin who lives in Yorkshire, but she doesn't keep in touch. She's got her own family. She's written me a letter and I can't read it. I've not seen her for years. She never bothers to phone me. It's all, not, I'm not interested. I live in this flat and I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody. Nobody rings my bell. I've accepted the fact that I'm older and life is as it is, and I've accepted it, but you just think of the past, don't you, in your mind? When I look around, there are so many people on their own that it was never like that years ago. I never met anybody that was on their own, you see, but this is how it is these days. Strange, isn't it?
Great. So we've played that once. I'm going to play it once over. And again, if you have the worksheet on you, great. Do fill out the empathy map that's on the worksheet.
I get up and I put my dressing gown on, I sit and have toast and marmalade, and then while I'm doing that, I put the radio on. Breaks the silence. I've never been on my own at Christmas. I used to be with all the family years ago. They've all died off one after the other. Then I've got a friend with these two ladies, they've died. So, I mean, there's so many people have died. Got cousins, but they don't keep in touch. But one, phone sometimes, but I don't, I haven't. Let's put it this way: there isn't anybody that I could call my next of kin. I was attached to a lot of people, but as I say, when my mind goes back, that's all gone completely. Well, unless somebody invites me, I no, no, I haven't booked anything for Christmas Eve. No, the shops will still be open, and go out and get whatever I want. Cook. I should watch the television. Yeah, got nothing planned yet at the moment, so I watch the television. I've got a cousin lives in Yorkshire, but she doesn't keep in touch. She's got her own family. She's written me a letter and I can't read it. I've not seen her for years. She never bothers to phone me. It's all, look, I'm not interested. I live in this flat and I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody. Nobody rings my bell. I've accepted the fact that I'm older and life is as it is, and I've accepted it, but you just think of the past, don't you, in your mind? When I look around, there are so many people on their own that it was never like that years ago. I never met anybody that was on their own, you see, but this is how it is these days. Strange, isn't it?
Good. I thought this was a really important case study, given that loneliness is such a strong contributor to cognitive loss, especially in the elderly. So solving for that is a really important issue, of course. So after we've sort of empathized with Violet and built that empathy map, we want to really define what the problem is. And one of the tools that's very useful for that is a 2 by 2 matrix. So on this 2 by 2 matrix, you basically put two different adjectives and their extremes on opposite ends of a quadrant. So here we have low discomfort and high discomfort, and hidden and obvious, and then fill out certain types of problems or solutions in the environment under a specific theme in those quadrants. So Mia mentioned the left hand example, and that's what I have here, being left-handed in a right-handed world. Using a right-handed desk that is seemingly hidden because the desks look so similar, but it's very uncomfortable for that long period of time. Um, Doing a handshake with someone that's pretty obvious and very uncomfortable as well because it's so awkward. Bumping elbows at a dining hall table that might be lower in terms of discomfort, but it's also obvious. Using a right-handed scissor is also uncomfortable but temporary, so it's lower discomfort as well as hidden because it's not such an obvious solution or not such an obvious problem, given that the scissors look so similar as well. So then it allows you to reframe the problem and understand where you want your solution to go. For example, in this case, how might we make a lecture hall desk more of an obvious problem and less uncomfortable? Maybe we make the lecture hall desk a different color because most of the times all the desks are the same color, so you're not really seeing which ones are left-handed and right-handed. So professors might not have enough left-handed desks in the lecture halls. And maybe just making the desks more comfortable as a whole is important as well. I find them very uncomfortable even as a right-handed girly. Another important tool to identify a user's pain points is to build a journey map. And basically, you remove the x-axis and just keep the y-axis there. So here we can see a negative experience and a positive experience. And you're tracking the user's experience of your product or of the problem space that you discovered through your interview to see where exactly their pain points are. So after all of that is done, you really need to build a persona for your specific user. And the framework for that is a user that needs to do something because something. And the because is usually the real deep, unmet, deep insight that you've developed from their interviews. So your user should really be extremely descriptive and have as many adjectives as possible. Your need should be an unmet need that you've discovered from their interviews as well, and really focus on opportunities, not offering solutions here yet, because then you'll really be limiting yourselves during the ideation phase. And then an insight is a surprising sort of reason for why they have this. And they might not have explicitly said this. It might be something you've picked up from their body language or from the main themes of what they've been talking about. But this really ties the whole narrative and drives your research forward. So this is one point of view. There's a user, a teenager, that needs to not be annoyed because bad design is frustrating them. Okay, a teenager, that's vague, that could be nearly anyone. Needs to not be annoyed, that's basically every teenager. Nope, that's your assumption. Because bad design is frustrating them. That's pretty obvious. This is a more vivid point of view. A left-handed teenager at a lecture hall desk needs to take notes without contorting their body for 2 hours because the physical discomfort of being left-handed in a right-handed world is so normalized that people have stopped expecting it to be fixed. And that's pretty frustrating. This is again vividly descriptive. You've described that person's need and not your need. You have stated a non-obvious insight. So sometimes it can be hard to understand what needs people have, and I really like the SPICE framework that allows you to do that. You identify what sort of social needs people might have, what relationships they need from each other, what physical needs people might have. This can relate to accessibility, identity-based needs in terms of self-worth, communication. This is very important when you're designing an app, what kind of informations, when and where they need it, and emotional needs. This also ties into social needs as well. Another useful framework is this wheel of emotions. When you want to put things on your axes, you really want to get selective with what sort of words you're using. Extremes are great, and specific words are also really important. So this wheel really helps me describe what my user is feeling with as much specificity as possible. So now that we did the empathy map exercise for Violet and maybe even reflected on what sort of questions we might want to ask her, I am going to take a pause here for another 7 minutes or so to allow you guys to frame a POV for Violet and make your 2 by 2 for her. It's on the worksheet as well. And once you guys have made your POV, feel free to either send it to me or put it on the chat. I'd love to take a look at it. Okay, I can see Mia has written her POV here. Older individuals who lack community need a better way of communicating and bonding with people near them because they are very isolated in a world that is supposed to be more connected than ever. I think that's really beautiful. I love how specific the insight is, especially given that it was very specific to what Violet was saying too, that it seems like people are more connected than ever, but people never had this problem of isolation before, and it seems to be more prevalent now. So I really like this POV. So I would encourage everyone to just be as specific to just sticking to one user as possible. Just to move on, because my favorite phase is coming, ideation. I wanted to quote Linus Pauling here, and some of you may know him from electronegativity if any of y'all are chemists. The best way to get a good idea is to get lots of ideas and throw the bad ones away. So the best way to ideate is to always have a yes and mentality and not a no but mentality. You want to be as affirmative and additive about your own ideas because the world will be there to pull your ideas down. You don't need to be judging them and throwing them away before you've even put them out into the real world. Bad ideas are great. There are multiple methods for ideation, and I'll just briefly go over some of them. Obviously, there is mind mapping. It's a great tool to map different connections and build your ideas, connect them together, and emphasize that yes and mentality. Brainstorming is great, especially if you're doing human-centered design in a team. That's where most of my work was in, and it was very useful to generate ideas together. Body storming, this I think is a really funny exercise. Here we can see an image of them imitating what it would be like to carry a big piece of luggage and check it in at the airport counter. It can really help you isolate what sort of challenges might exist in the real world. And then crowdsourcing is collecting ideas off of multiple autonomous individuals. So when we're developing ideas, we start with how might we questions that are short statements that allow you to build off a point of view to launch your brainstorms further. And it's great to use certain frames when you're building those ideas. So some of these frames include how might we increase the good? Okay, Violet has this cousin. How might we leverage that? Or she gets letters, but she doesn't know how to read them. How might we increase the good? How might we remove the bad? People aren't really knocking on her door, even though she wants them to. How might we make that less of a barrier? How might we explore the opposite or question an assumption? Go for some other hyper-specific adjectives. Look for any unexpected resources in the environment. Are there some restaurants that are close by? Are there any schools that are close by that might want to do a program for the elderly? Look at similar environments and create an analogy with them. And of course, making up your own frame. These are great tools for brainstorming. So now going back to our POV that we built and the 2x2 that you may have designed, I want you to center your POV and generate at least 5 how might we's and 20 ideas using the frames. Now this might seem like a lot, but trust me, it's not. For most of my HCD projects, we had to come up with at least 100, 200 ideas and 20 how might we's. And I'm gonna just pause here and share a little bit of my own work and ideation for that prompt. So here we had to reimagine civic engagement, and this was our initial ideation phase. And so these were some of the how might we's we developed. How might we create more informal or welcoming spaces where residents and city employees can exchange ideas outside of formal meetings? And these were some of our hyper-specific ideas that we ended up coming up with. Pop-up coffee chats or happy hour with the engineers, cultural food dinners. How might we connect city leaders with student groups or young residentials to build mutual understanding? Well, we could have college students that would decorate major structures, create a gamified civic engagement app. We'll realize soon that everybody loves to gamify everything. Um, Create it and so have some collaborative events. So we really went all out with these ideas, as you can see, get as descriptive with it and have as much fun with it as possible. And I can already see some similarities with what might be useful to Violet as well. So I hope this helps you brainstorm a bit while we take the next 5 to 7 minute pause to come up with some of these ideas. All right. Before we move ahead to actually prototyping some of these ideas, I wanted to show some of the prototypes that we came up with for this specific project. Our main idea was to create a hands-on activity that would allow the city engineers to interact with the voices of youth and really solve for certain problems in our community. So, inspired by human-centered design, we came up with an urban design roulette game where people could spin and find a user in the specific community, what their needs were, and what sort of constraints they might have. So, for example, you might be a student at one of the colleges that needs to drink water, but there's no access to a fountain. So, how can we design for that in the specific space? And then we had a bunch of Legos laid out, and it basically allowed for a very hands-on, tangible way for city engineers and students to interact and solve problems in real time without actually building real solutions. Um, and we prototyped several solutions, even hand-drawn some apps, as well as coming up with some other gamified versions. But they really ended up enjoying our urban roulette game when they all came to see our final presentation. And at the end, it ended up having a huge impact on Maria, who is the city engineer. She really enjoyed our game, and she was really excited to use it in the community at farmers markets and events as well. And this leads me to my favorite part, prototyping. So, a prototype is essentially a tangible representation of what your idea is that allows you to test what your idea is in real time and learn from it when it's in the hands of your users. I want to remind you that it's early proof of concept and it's not your finished product. So, having a perfectionist mindset with it is not going to help you. You want to prototype as fast as possible, as low fidelity as possible. What is really important here is that you identify the key variables that you're trying to learn and that you're still exploring, that your prototype is really quickly built and it's rough, and you're really creating an experience for your users, and you want to let it go and be in their hands. So even if they misuse your prototype, it's still a learning experience for you. This is an example of a low fidelity prototype that my team and I designed for a dating app for neurodivergent individuals. We were supposed to reimagine matching for them, and this was one of our solutions, which was adding a tone tag keyboard. So you may not know what tone tags are, but essentially they're used in a lot of group chat forums like Reddit, allowing you to convey what your tone is like without the use of emojis. And it's very useful for people that sort of have more anxiety with texting and can't really read tone in messages. I honestly think I need this as well. Um, and so we propose this in a very rough, prototypical way, almost like a flip book of post-it notes. And this is our prototype for that. So now I challenge you guys to pick the best idea, or honestly, any idea that you think you can prototype now, and create something tangible that Violet could experience. It could be a space for an event, a community practice, a digital connection. Really think with anything and design on post-it notes or whatever you have around you that will allow you to convey your idea best. And we are going to be trying to share this with each other. So try not to make it too perfect, but just make sure you can communicate it to the other person. I'll give you guys, let's say, 7 to 8 minutes to do this. All right. I hope that you may even have just a description of your prototype, but that would be great for just a quick share out. I can see that Mia's already written down her interesting prototype of an app for individuals that is similar to an app for vision loss that connects older individuals to indicate they're feeling lonely, and people that have signed up can video chat or talk to them. That sounds really interesting to me. Tech solution to see whether the app is intuitive enough and also could connect older individuals to people that sign up and also make sure that there are protections in place. I can see that Farhana's also written down what her prototype is like. This is really great stuff, guys. I invite you all to share it with each other in breakout rooms. But really quickly, just want to go over what testing is like. So when we test with real people, it's some of the hardest things to do to really put your prototype in people's hands and let them do whatever they want with it. But it's really important to get feedback and to learn from it as well. You really want to test with low resolution prototypes first before stakes and funding has really gone in. Because if something is fundamentally wrong with your idea, you don't want to fail so late in the design process. It can be very, very costly. You want to refine your understanding of your users and needs and then iterate your prototypes accordingly. I say I would like you to invite your user to be the expert. So, really set your scene for what the problem space is. Make sure you're showing them, not really telling them. And this really works better in person. For the purposes of today, I would just say, just describe what your prototype is like. And testing is really just another opportunity for empathy. You want to observe how they're interacting with your product. Remember that they are the expert in this space and really see how they use or misuse your prototype, and then capture your learnings in a framework. And then again, iterating on the fly is really important too. So maybe asking your user, okay, what about if we did this instead of this? Or like we incorporated this instead of something else. And it really give them the chance to change things on your prototype as well. And you can decide what feedback you want to keep later. This is a great framework that, again, we love frameworks in human-centered design, but this really helps you capture your learnings. What worked, what didn't, what new questions have emerged, and what new ideas could you explore? So now I'm going to break you guys out into breakout rooms of two and just do a quick show and tell, like as if you're in elementary school, explaining what your prototype is, and then get 2 minutes of quick feedback where you're really saying, what do you like? What do you wonder? And it would be game changing if you did something, 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 or explored something. And then take a couple minutes to write your feedback. Just gonna us in breakout rooms.
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So my prototype was the one in the chat that she talked about that was the app. It's based on this app that's for vision impaired people where they can indicate that they need help with something, whether that's like repairing something or they just like lost something in their house and they can't find it and they indicate that they need help. And then a sighted person gets on video call with them, who has previously signed up to be like a buddy to these people. And gets on a call with them immediately when they need the help and can help them out with finding that lost thing or doing whatever. And so I thought of sort of iterating on that and making an app that could um, have the older individuals who feel lonely or don't feel like they have a lot of connections could indicate on the app, hey, I'd love to like talk to someone or meet someone. And then people who signed up on the app would get the notification that somebody would like to call them or need some person to person interaction. And they would get to call them or chat with them, maybe video call them or call them just on the phone. And so it would be a way of resolving, like when Violet was saying that she doesn't have anyone to call, this resolves that problem. So that was my sort of prototype idea.
That sounds good, but I had a question. Um, you said that it was specifically for visually impaired people. So where does that factor come in, and how does that play into the loneliness factor? Like, is it just for the people who are visually impaired and as well as experiencing loneliness? Is it targeted towards
So
them
it
specifically?
Our my app, my prototype would be for all older individuals. It's just based on an existing app that already exists that's for vision impaired people. So it's like the same concept and the same idea for an app, but just for a different population. So instead of helping people who are visually impaired and who need help finding something or doing tasks, it's instead for people who are older individuals who lack connection.
All right, that sounds great, honestly. Um, should I go ahead and share my idea?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I feel like my idea is kind of generic, but also really important since I feel like human connection is basically or uh, accentuated through meeting in person. So my idea was maybe having a weekly meeting in person, like in a cafe or at a park or something, and a moderator or someone who's organizing the event would come up with an a idea that is to be discussed on a weekly basis. So he would take consensus from all the people who are interested. They would register for it, and I feel like registration could be done through since Violet, in our case, has been known to use radio. Maybe we should use that medium to actually, get the idea, get the event, and all the information out through that through that platform, and then we could just go ahead and keep sort of these weekly meetings, and the basically the connections and the connect would develop through all the conversations that happen in person.
Yeah, I really like that
So yeah, that
idea.
was my idea.
Thanks.
Okay.
I think that we both have a similar thing to consider when we're thinking about our prototypes, which is in both of our situations, we have to consider the population that we're helping, older individuals. A thing that's really important for them specifically is accessibility. So, like for my prototype, I have to think about, well, if I have an app that's supposed to be designed to give older individuals more connections, are they going to be able to intuitively use the app? Will they be able to learn how to use the app? Is it going to be understandable for them to use as people who didn't grow up with technology? And then for you, I was thinking as you were talking that it's such a great idea to meet in person, but I wonder if some older individuals might not be able to go because they need to use a walker or they're in a wheelchair or they need like disability accommodations to get places. So I just wonder for both of us if those are things that we both need to think about when we're thinking about our prototypes.
I definitely agree, but then again, I feel like for my idea, the moderator will have to look at all the all the technicalities, the logistics, in order to organize the event for people with disabilities as well, and to make it accessible. So maybe if someone is willing to volunteer, like maybe keep an incentive for the youth give out some sort of community engagement hours, and that would be an incentive. And then there will be people who will be out there to help, drive the wheelchair or assist the elderly who are using a walker or something.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point because I think there are definitely ways to make in-person activities accessible and make that happen. It's just something that we'd have to like have the moderator, like you said, think about when planning these things. And then on my end, I would have to make sure that the design of the app and the interface of the app was really simple and easy to understand. And I'd also consider um trying to make it a situation where maybe, I don't know, maybe instead of an app, we're about to be finished, but maybe instead of the app, the older individuals have like a necklace with a button on it they can press, but then the other people, it goes to their apps. Like the younger people who they're contacting, it goes to their apps so that it's like more built for the older generation than an app maybe is. Um, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was so nice hearing your idea. It says that the breakout rooms are going to close, but um,
Likewise.
yeah. All right.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
And I liked your the bracelet idea.
Oh,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that could be
Bye.
cool too.
Bye.
Great. I can see that everybody is back. I hope you had a good time testing with each other. Um, the last part is iterating, and we won't really be able to get into that too much, but I just wanted to leave these questions here with you. What surprised you? What would you change about your idea after listening to feedback from each other? And what question do you wish you could have asked Violet before you started designing for her? I want to leave you guys with this little thought exercise. Science and design aren't really that far off. As scientists, we use the scientific method where we observe, propose our research questions, develop hypotheses, experiment with rigorous methods, analyze our results, and then replicate. But it's pretty similar to the design process of observing the real world, defining our problem, ideating for it, prototyping, testing, and iterating. So when you start to see science as the art that it actually is, you start to appreciate it a lot more and define the problem that you want to solve for the rest of your life, especially if you're in academia. It makes it a lot easier to understand which problem you want to solve for the rest of your life. And so I want to summarize what you guys are walking away with. You have listened to research on loneliness and you've heard Violet's story. You've understood her specific world and built an empathy map for her, identified what they actually need, generated multiple different possibilities through how might we ideation, and built something tangible, as well as tested with each other. So, congratulations, guys. You've walked through the entire design cycle in the span of an hour. So I'll leave you guys with this great quote that I love to use whenever I'm designing anything. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And I'm just going to plug my Instagram here, sana.experiments. It's actually my art account that I'm converting into a design education account. I'll keep posting my art, of course, but I also have some interviews lined up with STEM experts, like my computational neuroscience professor has agreed to do an interview. I have a couple doctors and dentists, and basically, I'll be asking them about how they use design in their field and how they view their space as creative. I genuinely believe that when you decide a specific pathway for yourself and for your future, it's the field that you can be the most creative in, and it can be the most liberating thing if you are able to be that creative in your field. Personally, I started to feel very restricted in some of the labs that I was working in because I didn't feel creatively challenged enough. But then when I realized that like education and how students' minds are shaped by various forms of education was the specific problem that I wanted to explore and dive deep into it. I knew that that's where I wanted my neuroscience research to end up going. And that's why I'm doing my master's in neuroscience and education at Columbia. So I wanted to also offer some resources, some tools as designers. These are my top four favorites. Sticky notes, of course, any prototyping materials. Figma is amazing for prototyping apps or any sort of digital system. And then Notion for you to have your second brain and thinking system. And then some resources that I think are really important, and I would be remiss to not mention them. Bill Burnett and Dave Evans' Designing Your Life is an incredible, incredible book. It really helped me structure what I want to do with my life and allows me to see our lives also as a huge human-centered design project, with you being at the center as a user. The Field Guide to Human-Centered Design, it's by IDEO. It's an incredible guide. It has all of the tools that I had explained today and a lot more. Design for Belonging, this is by my professor, Susie. Another useful small book for understanding how designing works in the real world when you're trying to solve for more systemic issues. And then two podcasts that I love to listen to, 99% Invisible, that talks about certain innovations in real life that maybe you don't notice but are actually really well thought out of. And then the rest is science. It's I don't know if you guys have watched, but Vsauce, his YouTube videos, I used to love watching them. And then Hannah Fry, she is, I think, a professor at Oxford in physics, but they really answer scientific questions from a curious mindset and explore these questions as answered or even talk about it in unanswered ways. And it just really helps my thinking flow. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining today's workshop. If any of y'all have any questions, to put it in the chat. I can see Barry, you've already asked for my LinkedIn. I think if you search it up, you should be able to find it. I think it shows up like I'm the only Sanah Anand at Pomona College, so it should be able to come up on a first search. Um, if you all have any other questions, um, pop them in the chat. And if not, I can walk you through some of my other case studies real quick too.
Thank you so much. This was such an amazing lecture. I learned so much about human-centered design. That's something that, I'm so big on science accessibility and research accessibility, but I don't have a background in human-centered design. So this was very informative for me, and I'm going to keep this in mind when designing experiments in the future. And it was so fun to actually prototype something in real time. I'm amazed that we got through the entire process in only an hour. I know in real life it probably takes a bit longer. But was so fun. And I just want to remind everyone that if you're here right now, you can attend so many more fun lectures for the rest of the summer. We have lectures every Saturday and sometimes also on Sundays through the summer, and we might also extend it into the fall. That's for our Research Girl Science Saturdays lecture program. So all of the lectures are free to attend. We've got lectures on different scientific disciplines and fields. We've got lectures on research design, how to get into grad school. So stay tuned. That'll all be posted on our social media and our website. So if you want to attend more amazing lectures by other amazing lecturers like Sanah, you can do so for the rest of the summer.